We're live. Okay. Hey, Lord, TGIF on a beautiful weekend. How you doing?
Oh, I am doing fabulous. And you know what? This weather is beautiful. It's a little cool, which is in the Chicago area. We like that. And, all the different festivals are starting. I'm so excited and that. So, but we have a great theme today. And you know what? It kind of goes with a lot of things that we've been doing. We have that thing on Wednesday with Kevin Matthews, and this kind of goes with kind of a lot of what we've been talking about. And then it's going through a spiritual awakening and how to enhance it. And there's some different things about it, and thought it would be a great topic for us to talk about. It is spiritual awakening has been around for years. And, it doesn't matter, what religion, it could, different cultures have spirituality. There's a lot of different things. They call it an enlightenment. And it's just part of being in this world. But spiritual awakening can be mildly unnerving at first because you don't know what's really going on because you go through these questions like, who am I? Or what am I? What is my purpose? And so, but there's certain elements that we could go through that kind of goes through the steps of what's going on when you're finding out your spirituality. And so, with that, Debbie, I'm going to have you start talking about some of the causes of spirituality and
Sounds good.
awakening.
Thank you. Thanks, Laura. Sounds good. And I think this was just a perfect timing for this. I think it's a timing in many lives because we're changing
Right,
seasons. And you're going to hear
right,
Lori and I talk more about this coming up this next week about, changing seasons. But, there's signs and things that we go through that we need to kind of recognize. And, sometimes the spiritual awakening can be for us feeling a little bit disconnected or detached, okay, from at first, overwhelmed, confused. It could
right,
be because you have a change in your life. It could be that you're going through a change. It could be that things, we're changing as we get older. We don't have the family unit the same. Kids have moved off, gone to college, then they came back, then they left again. Now they're getting married. Now they're having kids. That might be your life. Or maybe you're younger and you're having a spiritual awakening of change too, in your of change, and you're feeling like sad about it, like you're
right,
feeling disconnected that you're not able to do the same things you used to do. You
right,
weren't packing their lunch for school every day. You weren't driving them to the bus or taking them to the
right,
bus or taking them to school.
right,
So I think that, they're going to vary for everybody, so,
right, right, right.
and with that, Laura, we're going to just flip flop back and
Yeah.
forth.
Well, like Debbie was saying, the discontentment of stuff, you feel like everything you thought was true in your life is not. And you're, like Debbie said, disconnected. But you have to reevaluate your beliefs, revise your spiritual beliefs or adopt significant new ones. Whether your means connecting deeply in a new religion, a belief, or quitting a job, or anything to do with change. Your real passion, finding out if you don't know after all these years or anytime what your passion is. And plus, we adopt new passions too. And like in my case, going on disability and my life changing, I have to come up with new things to do. And that's kind of like, what Debbie and I had started when we decided to do this on doing our Facebook pages because we were at a point where the pandemic started and we had to develop a new passion to keep everybody positive, and then your dreams are more vivid, you're starting, it's almost like an awakening, and your dreams are different and you start thinking more. And the more you're into this, the more you're motivated to do things. It's like a spark lights you up. And you're like, wow, I want to do this. And this is how Debbie and I have been feeling,
Mm-hmm.
especially the last couple of weeks. And, I got to see Kevin Matthews last night. I came home, I was like on fire. I'm like, oh, I want to do this and this. It's like you get inspired. But with that, Debbie, I'm going to have you go on to the next one.
Absolutely, Lord. Thanks. And I'll tell you what, it's sometimes like your dreams seem to be more vivid too. You know,
Right.
when you're going through a spiritual awakening and you start to dream about and think about the things that you want to do and set maybe some goals, you know, for yourself.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Lori and I, who would have thunk it at our age? Sometimes people are like winding down and they want to do all these different, you know, like kind of chill away from stuff. And Lori and I are pushing our foot to the metal
Yeah.
to build something that's cool to help others. And we define that dream, the meanings of how to connect with your journey and all that together, you know. And you may frequently experience some synchronies, like kind of interesting, you know, things like that. Everything happens for a reason. My mom used
Right.
to say that,
Right.
and she used to talk about
Right.
that, and like things fall into a path. And we have together, Lori and I've noticed where it's mind blowing to us when we pick a subject and a topic and we start to dig deep into it and we're like, man, I can relate to this. I'm feeling this. I feel like we're both going through things that we're talking about right this moment that we can relate to in our personal lives. So if we're feeling that way too, is it kind of ironic that I'm sure that a lot of you are feeling that way? I'm sure a lot of you guys are feeling this you know, difference of things happening, and maybe you have to reset your values, your choices, your opinions, your goals, and things like that, you know. And I'm just going to go on to one more too, though. You're also, you know, things going on with your relationships begin to shift a little bit, you know, transformation of the people maybe in your life that won't always be able to appreciate some of the stuff that you are thinking, doesn't understand because they think you're changing. And I think that I'm going to talk a little bit about just saying that, like, if you have beliefs, stay true to it. Okay. If you have beliefs that you feel solid about, don't get mad at the other person, try to love them for where they're at, and try to understand. But, you know, it's part of a spiritual awakening of you're viewing and feeling some which way that you have every right to. Okay. Don't feel guilty and don't feel bad. Don't let somebody
Right.
make you feel that way. And Laura, I'm going to send it back to you on this topic too.
Okay, you know, then spirituality becomes an important part of your life. And it gets to the point where you're like, that's like a priority to you. Because you feel this, like I said, it's a spark going on. And you feel like you've got to really focus on this. So it becomes a big priority for you to figure out what your spiritual side is. And you know, it's like you know, intuitive. You get real intuitive to things and what your abilities are. Um, you know, they're buried beneath layers, okay, of your ego, and now they are awakened, and they feel much more in tune with yourself. I mean, that's just amazing. Like, you know, sometimes, you know, especially a lot of us mothers, when our kids were younger, it was about our kids and everything. And now all of a sudden, you know, we're getting this spark going here, and we gotta like start dig deep and see what we want. And all of a sudden we're like on fire. And that's even like a college student going to college. It's a new beginning. You know, I talked about it last week about I think of Labor Day as a new beginning. You know, so think about you coming in tune with your in spirituality as a new beginning for you, you know. And we go through all parts of our lives where it's new beginnings for us. And you know, births and you know, graduate, all kinds of stuff. So let me see here. Sense of inauthenticity and manipulation. Okay. And besides being extremely intuitive, you're able to sense an authentic or manipulative behavior when someone is deceiving you as well. All of a sudden, your eyes are open and you're able to see the truth. You know, the truth. Your spirituality makes you feel the truth about what is real. And so all of a sudden, you're able to see people that manipulate you, you know, and you're able to kind of carbon, what is it? When you carbonate, what is it? You know what I'm talking about? I
I
can't,
can't,
I
I
can't
can't,
think of the word. But when you kind of like put things in different compartments, that's what I mean, compartments. And you're able to say, well, I can't have this person manipulating me. I am who I am. you know, and all of a sudden the beliefs of who you are being brought out on you.
Mhm.
So Debbie, I'm going to have you go on to the next one because that's a really good one.
And I just want to add to that just for a second that, you may have to like kind of like eliminate a few relationships or sort of just segregate yourself
Yeah, right.
away just a little bit. I mean, you may love the person and they may be very significant, but sometimes you have to maybe take a little break or a little time out or whatever. But
Right,
you know
right,
what I mean? And
exactly,
because
exactly.
it also comes with also realizing that everyone's on their own path. So my path and your path, Lori, we're very much on the same lines, okay?
Right,
But there are a lot of people that are on different paths, okay?
yes.
And I always say it's kind of like a map quest, okay? There are a couple
Yeah,
different
right.
ways to get to one location, and
Yeah,
sometimes one person's gonna go this way, and this one's gonna go this way, up, down, around, and take the fast pass or the shorter whatever way. But their path might be very interesting and unique, and it's not worth having arguments or trying to convince people of your
right,
viewpoint or
right,
your path that you're
exactly.
taking, because they are going to be like, it's insane. And let's just say this a very general, okay, that this world has a lot of interesting paths happening right now and a lot of things
Right.
that are not necessarily everybody's viewpoints, and this is very difficult. And I think this is a place that a spiritual awakening comes to, because
Mhm.
we dig deep into our minds and we have to kind
Right,
of like feel like it's okay. It's okay to believe the way you believe, guys. I'm
right,
telling you right now, I don't know what your belief is. I do know, Lori and I, how we feel so much similar on so many points. And it's a big struggle, because you can have one person say it's black and another person say it's white, or half glass, half full, half empty. It's hard. It's very hard. And to keep yourself on the straight and narrow and keep yourself in balance is hard, but do whatever you can. We're going to have some things later we're going to say in a few minutes about that, but Laura, I'm going to send it over to you.
okay, you want to be of service. So all of a sudden you're like you're feeling like, well, I want to be more involved in this. You know, I want to be more helping in my community. I want to be more involved in my church. I want to be service to, if you love animals, all of a sudden you want to volunteer at a shelter. You know, there's all kinds of things. The animals are important to you. Your environment is important to you. You know, and you'll be starting to change your current roles of jobs. You know, it's interesting that they keep saying jobs in this article, but that's true. You know, we get so complacent in our jobs, and then we're not happy, and so all of a sudden, because that spark plug, all of a sudden we start thinking about what other jobs we can do. So that's what happened. And then for your next one, it's amazing how the world works. But you know what? When we're in this mode, okay, all of a sudden teachers and people that are important, that know could feel your spirituality, and all of a sudden you have all kinds of people that are coming and want to mentor you, or they want you to mentor them. It's almost like, it's like a language. It's a whole new language that's out there. And this is crazy, but it is so true. It's like all of a sudden you're thinking of some. This is an example. You're thinking of something, and then all of a sudden, everywhere you go, you hear about that something. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
And so that is just really, really crazy, but it's awesome to think about it. That's how the world is. And so with that, I'm going to have you do the next one, which is a really good one too.
Absolutely. And I also want to say, do you ever feel like you, on that one last topic, that all of a sudden somebody says something to you and you're like, I really needed to hear that.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
really
that's a
needed to
good
hear
point.
that.
Good
Like it was
point.
kind of like, might have kind
Yeah.
of been just something, a phrase, or it could have been advice, or it could have
Yeah.
been something they were
Right.
going through.
Right.
Because a lot of times we feel alone. We feel like we're not like, people don't go through what we're going through, and
Right.
spiritual
Right.
awakenings are not easy undertakings. There are time that we need to enlighten. We need to kind of say, okay, enough is enough of whatever you're going through, or whatever you're not, or you're feeling. You're like, maybe you're at a standstill, and we're referring back to jobs and stuff, but maybe you need to get out of a toxic situation and go into a happier place. Maybe you need to, just, or maybe you need to make the best of the situation and say, you know what, I'm going to make this whole environment better, because I'm going to come in there and I'm going to actually
Right.
brighten it up, and come back and start saying positive things to people, and sharing positive quotes, and being like that example to someone else. And, I'm going to tell a short story. And there used to be a person that worked in an office that I had to go into quite often. Okay. And it was a person who had a very like snippety attitude. And I actually would always be like, hey, how you doing today? How's it going? Like I tried to, and all of a sudden that person became like really good friends of mine. And there was a time I needed something, and I don't want to tell the story too true, because I don't want to offend anyone, or if that person was listening, but when I needed something because something got broken and I needed to get an additional one, they had an extra one there and they gave it to me, and I didn't even have to pay for it, because I made that friend, but I made that person feel good. You know what I'm saying? And so maybe also like we can make a difference in other people's lives and enlighten our own spiritual life. Okay. Because I think, what are we here for? Okay. What is our purpose and goal in life? We don't really always know. And it'll make you more connected to our natural world. Our world today is a world of a lot of turmoil, guys. There's a lot of SHIT going on right now. I'm sorry. It really is. Okay. And it could be within your family. It could be within beliefs. It could be within whatever. And I think that, if we can feel more connected to, your friends and family and, nature, and appreciate, Lori mentioned what a beautiful weekend it is. You guys, get yourselves outside and do something outside. Get outside and explore and look at what the beautiful world is. Look at the nature and the plants and everything like that. And with that, Laura, I know there's your senses are heightened. Why don't you share some on that?
Oh yeah, all of a sudden, you're with your spiritual awakening, you start, being more sensitive to physical things, emotional, energetic, like Debbie was saying about it, people maybe are in a bad mood, and all of a sudden you come in there with this more positive attitude, and then you make their day. And so your senses, you're sensing this more. You're sensing this with people. You're sensing it with the people at the grocery store. Um, have you ever walked around, especially in the grocery store, I think about it, and you have like a little bit of a smile on your face, and people always nod back at you?
Mm-hmm.
I get that all the time. And so, but your senses are more aware of everything. Again, you have a good, what do they say?
Karma?
Maybe what now?
Good karma, maybe, or
Good karma. Good karma. Perfect wording for it. And then, what you call it, all of a sudden, even your body sensations are different. Maybe you're more incensed, maybe you're sleeping better, or maybe you're not sleeping better, because your mind is racing about things that it could do. It could go one way or another. Your body's just more sensitive to things. I just think, again, when that spark flies, it's like your whole body goes to a new beginning, so everything is like new. Think of a baby, the senses of a baby. So that with that, but even some of your physical symptoms start to change. Okay, your awakenings like fatigue and fog might not necessarily be working anymore. You might be more energetic. You're not having that foggy brain, because your brain's working now to think about all kinds of things to do that you're going to be more positive about. And that is really good for people that are suffering from chronic illnesses, because we get, and I say we because that's me, get in a habit of just being like down because you can't do things like you used to. But if your spirituality comes out and you're spiritually connected, all of a sudden, what was maybe hard for you to do, your mind is waking up and you're thinking, I can do this,
Mhm.
and thinking about things you can do with your limitations. But that's with everybody, your brain fog, you're thinking straight. Again, a new beginning, you know, a new marriage, all that kind of stuff, the feeling that you get when something is new. And with that, Debbie, I'm going to have you do the next one, which is, habits. And
Well, here's another thing, Laura. You mentioned, it doesn't have to be like a physical situation
yeah.
too. That's a disability of a person. It can be a depression or
Oh,
anxiety
yeah,
or
depression,
stress
anxiety, yeah.
that no. And I want people to realize that, these all are things that can, kind of hold you back. Okay.
Right,
And push, you got to
definitely.
push forward, because here's the thing: as your spiritual life begins to transform day to day, your habits and your routines, maybe you need to change something. I spoke about this a little while ago on one of the talks we were talking about, that I had a client that told me about how she made a big change in her life and decided to get, be on time more and be more organized, and it made her day go better. Maybe you need to reevaluate. Maybe you need to also talk to somebody about your overall viewpoints in life to help your spiritual awakening. Maybe it's a counseling session, maybe it's somebody from your church, maybe it's a friend. Lori and I bounce things off of each other all the time. You know what? We because we feel like if we can help each other, maybe I don't see something the way that all of a sudden she says, think of it this way, or whatever it is. Okay. So maybe you need a little accountability friend or
Right.
partner or something like that. But when you spend more time and you ditch those old habits and make them be in the past and think about what you can do to make that new awakening, your outlook on the world will start to feel different. Okay. You'll realize that when something comes in your path that's maybe tragic or not a good situation or whatever, you actually will motor through it better. And let's just face it, you guys, we're all going to have things thrown on our face, thrown in our way, thrown in our path. Okay. Illnesses, sicknesses, people that loved ones that, have issues, whatever, so we need to be able to, feel like we're more connected to the people around you and increase your empathy towards others of what they're going through. And maybe if you get your spiritual self right and get that all, then you can in turn be affecting someone else and help
Right,
them get theirs
right,
back in right.
right,
And that's our
right,
whole big message that Lori and I are
right,
talking about today.
right,
Lori and I are no experts. You know what? We're not saying we got all this down pat. I'm
no,
reading half this stuff and going, man, I got to get better at that. I got to do better.
right,
I got to feel.
right.
I got to work on that aspect better. And if I can, and if I can, it's better. And it's just so funny because I'm looking forward that, like, when you display compassion, and feel compassionate towards others, but you want to still hold them accountable. Lori and I do that back and forth with each other, where we hold each other accountable of some of the beliefs that we try to put back in front of each other. But we also have compassion, and we know it's not easy. We sometimes we don't want to get up and do things, or we don't want to be that person that we have to be for our family. But we get up and we get it done, because we both have things thrown in our way all the time. We're not up here going, oh my gosh, we have this
Right.
like fairy tale life. But
No,
I am
no.
so thankful for everything. I'm so thankful and blessed. There is
Right.
absolutely no doubt. But we don't have we go through it too. And with
Yeah.
that, Laura, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, the last one here is a newfound curiosity. Oh my gosh. Think about a child that's just learning about the world, and that childlike curiosity. And even though when things get tough, they seem to have they're more of a positive curiosity. And what happens as you get older and you have more things happen in your life, and a lot of bad things that happen and stuff, you become very emotional about it. You're like very negative, but all of a sudden you're in this new childlike curiosity, and all of a sudden everything is like brand new to you, and you're able to look at things completely different. You know, it's almost like, do you ever have that issue where you're like pondering about something and you need to walk away and go back? It's like that new feeling of what you see. And this is what a sign is of a spiritual awakening. And you know, all of us have been through it. We've all been through spiritual awakening, but it's a matter of, how do we deal with it? How do we, is it a, we're realizing this is a great thing for you in your life. This is a great, this is great. This is a great way for our souls and stuff. So Debbie, with that, you want to go on and talk about different spiritual awakenings and
Sure. I'm going to say that real quick, and I'm going to talk a
yeah,
little fast because we got a few things we really want to get in, and it's like, you want to kind of clear certain things out of your life that could be bad,
right,
habits, relationships, old belief systems, toxic relationships,
right,
things that maybe you're starting to figure out and you're feeling lost and confused about it, but you want to get that out of your path and you want to try to like, have a revival in a way, kind of.
right,
And sometimes
right,
it's hard to
right.
do that. And you may need somebody to guide you through it. You may need a little bit of like somebody, but you can try different things to kind of take up some time, like some hobbies or religious relationships. Like maybe you need a new church. A lot of people need a new church. Sometimes you got to find the right one, and that's okay. Maybe you should get yourself involved in some like service activities that Lori and I were talking about, to kind of help you, and also you want to actually find out the stages and stuff of taking some soul sessions for yourself, maybe some meditating, maybe some soul searching, maybe reading some books, maybe listening to some podcasts. Lori and I were talking yesterday, there's some majorly good books that are on audio. So if you can't sit there and read a book, but you have time, you're doing something, you can literally listen, and maybe then pick a couple things on topics that maybe refer to this that will help you. So with that, Laura, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Well, going into surrendering that, realizing that you need to change and you need to focus on um, the spiritual avenue you're going down, your spirituality. And, I'm sure you've all heard it in 12-step programs like AA, NA, Overeaters Anonymous. That's the biggest thing they say when you need to change is you need to surrender, but you also need to surrender that this is happening to you
Right.
and that this is a good thing, and you can't be scared of those feelings. You have to go with that, and you're more aware of what you're doing. You're more aware of how you're coming across to people. You're aware of this feeling of giving and caring and empathy and everything that we talked about and that. So, but how do you make space for your spiritual awakening? We're going to go this real quick because we have something special we want to do. Start a spiritual journey, okay? Get more with meditation. Do a gratitude journal. We've talked about that before. Be more mindfulness of what you're doing. Set a goal, say, no, I'm going to do one good thing for somebody today, that kind of stuff. But be more in tune with yourself and just let your spirit flow within you. And you'll be amazed. Debbie and I have situations all the time where we just let things flow with us, and all of a sudden we're getting the answers that we need. And we're getting motivated to do things. I get motivated to do this on Wednesdays and Fridays. We're so excited every week. We can't wait to see what we're going to do the next week. And we just let our spirituality lead us where we needed to go. Okay, Deb, you want to wrap that part up?
I just want to say one thing, that at the bottom line, honest to God, you guys, spiritual awakenings are complicated.
Yeah,
there's not the short term life changing one. It's a long term situation sometimes, but sometimes it's short term. You will improve your life for better. You got to have patience.
right,
You also got to go with your inner gut. You got to understand. and there's times where people need to really disembark away from a lot of stuff. And sometimes it's hard to do that. Okay.
Right,
So,
it is.
okay. Know that you're not alone with all that stuff, because it's so easy, and, but, and again, we're absolutely nobody, but if there's anyone that listens on here, and if there's anybody that has been part of our group that has even done, we've had a lot of people that have done, we've interviewed. If you have anything that you want to share, please do in the comments and continue on with it, and post. We've always said, once we've interviewed you and you've been on our page, please do offer anything, because if you hear this and you're like, I would love to say that this could help, please add that on. It's a post, a link, or whatever, a book, whatever, But with that, Laura, we got something we wanted to. We're coming up on a weekend that is a very difficult weekend, and there's a lot of people that are suffering for has happened in the past. And, we've got people that, could be listening to us that have lost loved ones in 9/11 attacks and things like that. And we just wanted to take a minute out here and just really take a minute of silence and bow our heads and maybe just pray right now in your own way for all the people we know. And I'm actually going to set a little of a timer here. And I know that maybe we can think of this together and have a moment of silence. I want to encourage everybody as you're here to continue this weekend. Okay. There's a lot of prayer out there, a lot of people that are hurting, a lot in all different capacities. And I hope that you can lift somebody up, make it a goal, no matter what a person's going through. Okay. And if you're more aware of something and you have a hunch and they're not open, just be their friend. That's a cool thing. And with that, Laura, I'm going to have you close us out.
Okay. I just want to say to everybody remembers where they were at 9/11, 20 years ago. So with that, I want to say, have a great weekend. Be proud of who you are, and be happy for your families. Take the extra time to smile more, and just know that we care for you a lot, and we are so awesome to have you all as our audience. And again, like Debbie says, please, any comments, but God bless all of you and have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Sounds good, you guys. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye.